Broadcasting the information the mainstream media won't touch. This is The Richie Allen Show in association with DavidIke.com.
Well, the latest edition of the Trends Journal has just been published. What can I say about Gerald Celente and the Trends Journal that hasn't been said before? Gerald has been accurately predicting geopolitical and economic trends for well over 35 years and beyond. And a lot of people have done very well for paying attention to him. Go to trendsresearch.com. Do subscribe to the journal. You know, I recommend very little on this program and I endorse even less. But the Trends Journal is fantastically accurate, brilliantly produced every quarter. Trendsresearch.com. The King of New York himself is on the line. Let's welcome back Gerald Celente. Mr. Celente, welcome back.
Mr. Allen, thank you for having me. Thank you for the kind words.
The kind words are true. You know, I'd like to say something negative about you, but then you'd probably just beat me up. But yeah, they are true. Over 35 years of making money for people and educating people as to what's going on. As we say in the UK, it's kicking off in New York City today. The news broadcasts here and in Europe are full of the comments made by President Donald Trump about North Korea and about Iran. What have you made of what's been going on today, Gerald?
Well, you know, North Korea is, of course, a great threat to the world. I mean, they have a GDP half the size of West Virginia's. And now they're cutting out their global trade. They just cut out a third of it. And that totals what they cut out, $1 billion. And what is Bill Gates worth? About 80-something billion. Yeah. And of course, North Korea has been a threat to the world. Look what they did, those North Koreans, lying right in front of our faces for everybody to hear that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction and ties to Al-Qaeda. And look what the North Koreans did to obliterate, to destroy an entire nation of Iraq, kill over 1 million people. Oh, and those North Koreans, you know, after their leader won the Nobel Peace of Crap Prize, yeah, what he said was that, I'm going to send 33,000 more troops into Afghanistan. And then Gaddafi has to go. Then those North Koreans, look what they did to Libya. Look how they destroyed a sovereign nation that did nothing to anyone. And those North Koreans, Assad has to go, I says. So look what they've done. They've slaughtered over 500,000 Syrians, those North Koreans. We got to watch them constantly. Now they're in Somalia. They're in Sudan. Oh, yeah. You know, of course, I'm talking about America.
Yeah.
North Korea has not done anything to anybody. The United States is dropping bombs on their border. Could you imagine if North Korea was dropping bombs and they had to deal with Canada and they're dropping bombs on the Canadian-U.S. border? And over to off Newport News over there to the east, we got the Chinese doing massive maneuvers over at Newport News. And down in the Gulf of Mexico, we got the Russians. And over there in California, we got the Iranian fleet doing massive, quote, war games. How long would America tolerate that?
About 5 minutes.
They'd be bombing the hell out of them. But the United States is doing this to every country that they don't like. And the prostitute little media, these little boys and girls, I have to be equal. They're nothing more than political whores. They get paid to put out. They get paid to put out propaganda, and that's one of the major stories in the Trends Journal, the propaganda that they're selling us. So now let's go back, Richie, to the Korean War. Started by the United States after they propped up a dictator in South Korea that was in bed with the Japanese, who, of course, you know, they had those wonderful women that they turned into slaves over there so they could have sex with the Japanese soldiers. You remember those, right? Yeah. We won't talk about that. The United States took that guy that was working with the Japanese and put him as the head of South Korea. The United States killed over 4 million North Koreans in the Korean War, the pilots used to radio back, there's nothing left to bomb. Look at the photos of North Korea. You see all new buildings. It's not like they just invented the joint, 30 years ago.
Yeah, yeah.
They destroyed everything. So now I am a believer in Second Amendment rights, the right to bear arms. That doesn't mean I'm going to use them. Why isn't North Korea allowed to bear arms, considering what they saw happen to Gaddafi and to Hussein when they didn't have nuclear weapons? Jack, you're dead. So here we are. Remember those old gunfights they used to show on TV, those old westerns, and the two guys are facing off each other, and their hands are ready to grab the guns, They had them strapped around their waist. Now, suppose we're watching one of those, and you and I are in the gunfight, and I say to you, hey, Richie, let's not draw, let's talk first. You say, okay. And then I'd say to you, as I'm pointing my gun at you, but drop your gun, and then we'll talk.
Yeah, yeah.
North Korea has been wanting to talk with Americans about peace forever. And all Americans keep saying is, we won't talk to you until you dismantle your defensive and offensive military systems. America is threatening North Korea with 300,000 troops on its borders, these massive, quote, war games. Oh, and look at the major media now. All these, again, these little prostitutes, these boys and girls that get paid to put out by their Washington Johns and their corporate whoremasters. How about Russia's having military drills, with Belarus?
Yes, that's right.
Major front page of the Financial Times today. But America has these massive drills off the shores and borders of North Korea, which are basically drills to attack the joint, and that doesn't make the news, or barely does.
Bases in
So
every
that's what I have to
country.
say about North Korea.
Bases in every country in the world, well, most countries in the world as well, surrounding Russia with military bases. How serious? I mean, we saw that test, and again, I'm not agreeing with you just for the sake of agreeing with you. I'd like to find a devil's advocate position to take against what you say to make it interesting for our listeners. It is interesting for our listeners, but I can't argue with you, Gerald. Of course I can't. So he's understandably doing weapons readiness tests for the eventuality that he's attacked. That's Kim Jong-un. If those tests continue and another long-range missile is tested a couple of thousand miles or a couple of thousand kilometres, how serious is that in terms of the possible response from the United States? Is Trump just playing to the gallery, talking about destroying people? Because we've heard from more sensible, I know you haven't, I know the media, it's probably only slightly better here than it is in America. It isn't really. But we've had a couple of, more sensible voices here today speaking on British news saying, look, it's silly by Trump. They're not going to bomb North Korea because they would be able to obliterate the South within a matter of minutes. So what is likely to be the Trump government's response in the event of another test?
What they just passed a new bill, $700 billion for the military. That's what they're doing.
Yeah.
It's the military-industrial complex. And what we have now is we have the military running Americans' government. This is anathema to everything that this country was founded upon. Eisenhower would be turning in his grave, a 5-star general, supreme commander of the Allied forces, who warned that the military-industrial complex was robbing the nation of the genius of the scientists, sweat of the laborers, and future of the children. And now it's happened. Who's running the White House? Mad Dog Mattis, McMaster, Kelly, 3 generals in top positions. As we wrote in this Trends Journal, Trump is merely back in military school. That's all it is. He's taking orders from the generals. Trump and I are the same age. I may have said this on your show before. The greatest threat when I was a kid Believe me, they couldn't control me. You little SOB, we had enough of this. You're going to military school. That was the great threat. Now here you are. You're a teenage boy. Grew up in the Bronx and Yonkers. What are you thinking of? Thinking of girls.
Girls, yeah.
I'm thinking of a car, and I'm thinking of sports. The last place my mother, may her soul rest in peace, a great Italian, woman, Italian women spoil their sons. I'm eating the finest food possible to be cooked. I'm going to go to military school? Trump was so narcissistic, they sent this rich little boy to military school, not far from us in Kingston over here, in Cornwall, New York, a little concentration camp. Now, here this guy, look at the pictures, Google it up, Trump in military school, dressed up in military drag, learning how to make his bed with the right corners and eating crappy food and saluting. Yeah, salute. I got a salute for you. You see that one? This is what this little boy is doing. And now Trump is back in military school, taking orders from the same guys that used to give it to him at New York Military Academy. And with the Goldman Sachs gang in charge as well.
And these are men, of course, they're neoconservative to the bone. Zionists.
No, they're not neoconservatives. No, I'm sorry.
You don't think so?
They're sick SOBs.
Yeah.
They're psychopaths. They're little boys with bad attitudes that love to kill people and haven't had a victory to mark up. If I'm in business and I'm showing one failure after another, I'm not in business. But these arrogant guys with their bad attitudes and guns that they'll kill you with keep killing without one victory. Not one victory, but a lot of bad attitude, arrogance, and murder.
Millions of dead bodies all over the world. Gerald Celente is live on the line from Brooklyn, New York. Do go to Trends.
No,
you're not
Kingston.
in Brooklyn. Kingston, excuse me, not Brooklyn. Kingston, of course. Subscribe to the Trends Journal by going to trendsresearch.com. The autumn or the fall edition. Hey, do you like that? The fall edition is out now. I'm lucky enough to get it every quarter. Trendsresearch.com. Subscribe to it. We'll watch this, Gerald, of course. We'll watch this develop over the coming weeks. We can talk about propaganda in a moment. The people of the UK voted overwhelmingly. Well, 52% is overwhelming as far as I'm concerned. They voted strongly to leave the fascist dictatorship of the European Union last year. What we've seen since then and what we're seeing now is a contrived, seemingly never-ending effort by those who lost, but also by the British media, to almost emotionally abuse the UK people into telling them that they didn't know what they voted for. We can't finish up in 2 years, as is the rules. The rules are when you leave the EU, you must have a deal by 2 years or no deal. Those are the rules. They want to extend this transition period forever and ever so that we never really leave the European Union. It's terrible. It's anti-democratic. It's worse than that. How do you read this Brexit situation and where that's going in the next few months?
Well, you said it all. I mean, the governments. Look at the centerfold of the Trends Journal. It's done by Anthony Frieda. Is my concept and Anthony Frieda, great illustrator's work. And here's a gift for your beloved family and friends who ignore the facts. And we have the presidential reality show, and then under it, who's your favorite freak? And we have all the freaks from all the political parties, the central bankers, and on and on. So all it is, you have freaks running your country. I mean, look one freak after another you got over there. The same here. Go to Germany. Hey, you been in France lately? It's a freak show. People are letting freaks run and ruin their lives. I mean, look at them. How could anybody with a half a brain listen to them? So they're all little sellouts. They're nobodies that have never worked a day in their lives, been sucking off the public tit and telling you what to do. That's Brexit. They could care less about the people. I just told you that in the United States, they just voted for a $700 billion defense budget. And then when you put in the black ops and the CIA, all the other stuff, we're looking over $1 trillion. Well, now they just had hurricanes in Houston and Florida, and the homeowners are losing everything. They give them a couple of pennies. Where are the troops? You mentioned they're what, in over 800 bases overseas?
Yeah.
How come the troops aren't there rebuilding these homes? You know why? Because that's what they think of the Americans, just like your Mayo over there. Who's that other guy? Johnson with that funny hair. What's his name?
Boris Johnson.
Boris
yeah.
who?
Boris Johnson.
Boris
yeah.
Clown?
Yeah.
Boris Moron? Boris Imbecile? Boris, you little piece of crap nothing? How could anybody with a half a brain take orders from that little clown? And look what they do. Here comes the Queen, man. Roll out the red carpet, dress up all these little guys in their military drag, and salute every country. You look at Trump going out of the helicopter, saluting this little clown next to him. Yeah, I'll salute. I got one for you. Look what's going on. When are people going to have some courage? When are they going to stand up? Hey, look what they just had the Emmys. Oh, it was a big deal. Oh, it was all anti-Trump. Not one word for these little clowns over there in Hollywood, you little losing little pieces of garbage about peace. Nothing about the wars going on. All these little, we need more transgender bathrooms. Yeah, how about taking a leak in the street?
Absolutely right.
Nothing about peace. How could anybody that has a half a brain look up to a Boris Clown or a Trump or a Clinton or an Obama or a Bush or a Penis Cheney? It's the people, man. I've had it. I'm so sick of writing down the facts anymore. It's a freak show, and everybody loves their freak.
Don't ever get tired of writing the journal, mate. I mean that. It's absolutely vital that there's some semblance of free media in the US and in the UK. We might have just we just lost you momentarily. Thanks for calling back there. I was making the point.
Everybody loves their freak. It's a freak show. And when are the people going to stand up? How many more facts do you need? How many more facts do people need that they're getting shafted? It's a multinational takeover. You're a slave for the multinationals. Taxes so the elite could live better. And the politicians. So anyway, that's where I'm at.
I understand. It might sound a bit patronising, me saying to you, I understand your frustration, because I've not been alive to this for anywhere near as long as you have, and I certainly haven't been doing what you've been doing for nearly 4 decades or longer, telling people the truth. But I just wonder if there's just a tiny bit of optimism to be found in a couple of bad stories.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
The optimism, Richie, is that we have an opportunity to change it now that we've never had before, because it's such an obvious freak show. That's what I love about Trump. We got a freak now that's ahead of the freak show. You got freaks in the UK. You need a bigger freak than the two than who you got running the joint. Again, Boris Karloff over there.
Yeah. It's the story I'm thinking of. A big story broke here today. The Electoral Commission, which is the watchdog for elections in the UK, has recommended that internet trolls who target politicians have their right to vote taken away from them. And another couple of very interesting stories like that. A couple of very well-known broadcasters have lost their jobs for giving an opinion, a pretty harmless opinion, on a couple of social issues. And we know that in this coming parliament, the UK government is going to try and crack down on what they call online extremism, which basically means, anybody who disagrees with them. But in those stories, Gerald, I get a bit of optimism because, like you touched on there, they seem to know that they're not safe. They seem to know that something is coming for them. Otherwise, they wouldn't be acting the way they're acting. I don't know if you agree with that.
I agree 100%. They know it. Look, I've been there. At a graduate school, I was the number 2 guy running the mayoral campaign in Yonkers, New York. This is a city of 300,000 people. I was the assistant to the secretary of the New York State Senate. I was the chief government affairs specialist for a major portion of the chemical industry in D.C. I know I got pictures of me and Ronald Reagan, John Connolly. I met with General Anthony Zinni. I met with Major, your clown over there. I've been with princes. I've been around. They're nobodies. They're regular people. And when people stop, that's why they put on all of these shows. Like you got this little Catson Macron over there in France. At Versailles, putting on all these sideshows so that people get taken in with the theatrics. There's nothing there. It's an old man behind a curtain with a dog. It's the Wizard of Oz. And what's happening now, Catalonia, that's a big one to watch.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
They're threatening the people to have a vote. They're going to bring in the truth. What? Didn't the Spanish overthrow the joint? And now the people want it back? You know, it wasn't always part of Spain. A fascist overtook it. Oh, he was the king. Yeah, here comes the king. You know, so what I'm saying is, Richie, the opportunities now have never been better.
Never better. We've got about 5 minutes left on this, and knowing you probably have plenty more media appearances to do today. But in this quarter's edition of the Journal, which I got yesterday, I've been flicking through it. I'll read it thoroughly over the next couple of days, as I always do, and I'll make reference to some of it in future programs. Go to trendsresearch.com, folks. Subscribe to the Journal. I don't endorse anything really on this program. I endorse it because it's brilliant. I've been reading it for years. Gerald Celente is our guest. Just to talk about, you're talking a lot about propaganda, and I saw an amazing article written by an independent journalist the other day about how the elites and about how the media are trying to basically crack down on our right to cause offence as a means to starting a public debate on anything, Gerald. So you might have an opinion about an Irish broadcaster was fired recently because after he said, Gerald, that a young girl who was raped didn't deserve it, didn't ask for it, didn't do anything wrong, she didn't deserve it at all, and the bastard should go to prison for years. He then said, but the girl was comatose on the floor of a bathroom because she got so drunk she couldn't stand up. And he asked the question, do we need to have a conversation about personal responsibility? So the feminazis and the Irish media said that he was victim blaming and basically have had him thrown out of his job. It's a massive story in Ireland. It's localised, but it has implications for broadcasters and writers the world over. And there's been quite a number of stories like this recently where somebody has said something harmless to start a conversation and yet they were shut down very quickly. You mentioned the trans issue. We've had that over here where broadcasters who are against, people using bathrooms other than the gender with which they were assigned, which is a fair point of view and everybody's entitled to their opinion, they've been threatened as well. It's kind of tyrannical. I know you've spoken a lot about this. What do you think?
Well, again, think of what the things you're talking about. All these, identity issues. Nothing about the major issues. Nothing about war. Nothing about peace. Nothing about freedom. Nothing about enlightenment. So that's what they're doing. As I mentioned, you had these moronic Emmys. Yeah. All it was a hate Trump show. And all these little clowns, these little nothing boys and girls, not a man or woman among them, not one word about, we're in Afghanistan now for how many years and they're sending more troops? Oh, we just had 9/11, totally out of the news. Oh, the United States is slaughtering people in how many nations? So now we're talking about these identity issues. And that's what they're doing, Richie. And that's why people that are tuning into the mainstream media, if you like to masturbate, don't do it in public, because that's what you're doing when you're turning on the mainstream media. You're just part of the circle jerk.
Folks, go to trendsresearch.com, bookmark the website and subscribe to the Trends Journal. Gerald Celente in Kingston today, not in Brooklyn. Kingston. I always get something wrong, Gerald, because it's just the way I am. I produce, edited. I did a whole lot. Yeah, of course, from the Bronx originally. Yeah, brilliant autumn edition, fall edition of the Trends. Thanks for doing it, and I look forward to speaking to you again before the year is out. Thanks for your time, mate. I really mean that, as always.
Well, thank you, Richie Allen. I really appreciate what you do to put people ahead of the news and on top of the trends. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome, Gerald. Thanks for that. Gerald is off to do other media appearances today and back to producing the Trends Journal. Go to trendsresearch.com. Gerald Celente